Đồng hành cùng phần trình bày này là ông Michael Kokalari, Giám đốc Kinh tế vĩ mô công ty VinaCapital. Xin trân trọng kính mời ông Michael Kokalari tiến về sân khấu cho phần chia sẻ của mình.
There is no one better place for us to learn from. He's one of the most trusted voice for Vietnam's growth trajectory. Please join me in welcoming Michael Kokalari, Chief Economist from VinaCapital, to the stage.
Xin chào, Amazon sellers. Are there any Amazon sellers here who want to make more money? Nobody? Okay. Money? Make some noise. All right, I'm going to tell you who to sell to in the US and how to form your business strategy. These are not my ideas. The ideas I'm going to share with you today come from Harvard Business School and Stanford Business School, which are the #1 and #2 business schools in the world. Coincidentally, both the schools that I studied at, by the way. So I'm going to repeat to you some of the things that I learned there, okay? The first thing you need to know, this is very, very important, is that in the US, there's a phenomenon going on in the US right now, which is called the K-shaped economy. So think about the letter K. The K has an upper part and it has a lower part, okay? And when people talk about the K-shaped economy, what they're talking about, and it's a little bit too bad from a social point of view, but what they're talking about is that in the US, the rich people and the upper middle class people have a lot of money. And this should be your target who you sell to. Okay, this chart here on the left, what this shows is the top 10% of people, top 10% of consumers in the entire US, how much stuff they buy in the US. And you see that over the years, it's gone from like a third all the way up to almost a half. So that means that you, Amazon sellers, you want to sell to this group. You want to sell to upper middle class and rich people in the US. That's who has the money. That's who can buy from you, okay? This is a little interesting chart that I put here. The reason I put this chart is because in Vietnam, so I've worked here for 20 years now, I've been at VinaCapital for 10 years, I noticed that many Vietnamese are very smart and very sophisticated about what's happening in the US. They watch the TV news, maybe they read the Wall Street Journal, and if you do that, you might get the wrong picture of what's happening in the US right now, today. What's happening in the US right now is that the people on the bottom part of this K, they're very unhappy because we have a lot of inflation in the US. So their wages are not keeping up with inflation. And so this bottom line, this is what's called consumer confidence. So when you ask those people, how do you feel? They say, I don't feel good. But even though the consumer confidence is going down, the sales keeps going up and up. And why is that? Why is the confidence going down, but the sales going up? I just told you. It's because these upper 10% people who you should be targeting as your customer are buying more and more stuff. The second thing that you need to know is that there's a huge phenomenon in the US that's called the baby boomer. And this is people that were born after the World War II. This is a lot of people, when they talk about the baby boomer, they show some picture that looks like this, like the snake eating a pig. And what the idea is, the pig and the python, is that this baby boomer generation is so huge that they want different things at different times in their life. So in the 1970s, the baby boomers wanted apartments. In the 1950s, they wanted toys. Right now, these people are senior citizens. What do you think they want now? They want things to be senior citizens, to live at home. So we saw in the last presentation the picture of some really beautiful furniture. Looked really beautiful. You know what? If you want to win in the US, come up with some product that lets senior citizens to live at home. Come up with some product that's good for the baby boomer, for the old people. So who you need to target in the US if you want to be successful is the upper part of the K and the baby boomer. That's it. It's not more complicated than that. A lot of times in my job, economists make things sound like much more complicated than they are. If you want to succeed in the US, sell to the rich people and sell to the old people. This is a chart that shows the amount of wealth that old people have in the US. By the way, I'm getting old, just to be clear, and it's going up. And this is from the Brookings Institute, which are really smart, big brain people from Harvard and all this kind of stuff. And what you can see is that the rich people and the old people in the US are going to own more and more. So you should target, that should be your market that you go after, okay? And how do you win with these people? This is a very famous diagram that comes from Michael Porter. Michael Porter is the most famous business school professor in the world. He teaches at Harvard Business School. He was my professor at Harvard Business School. I'm going to tell you something that I learned from my years working here in Vietnam that I think will be really helpful for you. When you think about your business strategy, it's very important that you think, what category am I in? Do I want to be the person who's trying, or the company that's trying to cut cost and sell things for the low price and sell a lot, so that's a volume seller? Or do I want to be the one who's trying to sell things with the high price and high quality? You need to decide which of those two categories you're in, okay? This is the lesson of Michael Porter, not me. Once you decide which of those two categories you're in, you need to decide, do you want to sell to everyone that's on the top? Or do you want to pick a niche? Do you want to pick a narrow niche, a specialization, and just zero in on a very narrow part of the market? Now, Amazon has done amazing by cutting cost, by making it really cheap for people to, by the way, my mother buys from Amazon almost every day, making it very cheap. She's a member of the Prime, so she orders almost every day. So they target everyone, and they try to keep their costs low. I think it's a very famous story. All the people here who work in Amazon will know that when Jeff Bezos started this amazing company, in the beginning, everyone just had a door for a desk. So, of course, they could afford to buy proper desks, but what he was doing was he was enforcing, our strategy is to do whatever it takes to cut costs. That's our strategy. We're cutting costs and we're selling to everyone, okay? So in Vietnam, we have a really wonderful chain that targets is low cost and targets basically student market, right? So they're going low cost and they're going into a niche. We also have chains that are high cost, but trying to get to everyone, okay? One thing that Michael Porter advises, and this is the biggest problem for businesses, or one of the biggest problems for businesses that I see here. You know, my firm, VinaCapital, we invest in a lot of companies. One thing you have to be really careful about is to pick one of these quadrants and zero in on it. So I already told you who to sell, and now what you need to do is you need to decide what's your strategy. If you try to, and this is a really big thing that I see in Vietnam very often, if you try to target more than one at the same time, your business is not going to be as successful as it could otherwise. Now, in Vietnam, I notice myself, I live here, you know, I go around and have coffee just like everyone else here does. I notice one business that I can think of, that this business that I'm thinking of, and I'm going to ask you to shout out ideas who you think it might be. There's one business I can think of that they can't seem to decide if they want to be the low cost, that they have the cost low and sell to everyone, or if they want to be the premium product that's really fancy and has the high price. Can anyone shout out any ideas of who I might be thinking of? Who's stuck in the middle? That's kind of, they haven't really figured out, do they want to sell to the mass market? Do they want to sell low cost? Or do they want to sell high quality? Anyone, just shout it out. Yeah, good, shout it out. What's your, yeah, that's a good guess. That's a really good guess. I would guess, and don't get me in trouble, for me, I would guess Trung Nguyen, right? When I go there, I don't know, is this a discount chain? Are they trying to be Starbucks? What are they? They're kind of stuck in the middle. I actually think the product is quite good, but you see that, you know, when Starbucks has come here and when these other low-end chains have come here, they kind of not really, and of course I know there's all kinds of things going on with that company, and I'm not talking about the husband and wife, that's a whole different story. I'm just talking about the Porter's 4 quadrants. So to me, that's an example of a business that's not doing as good as it could because they haven't just picked one strategy and just done. Strategy means you make decisions that cut you off from doing the whole market at once. You zoom in on one thing. So please consider the target audience and how do you want to organize your business strategy. The next thing that I want to talk about is I want to just talk a little bit about what to expect in the US market for the next 1 or 2 years. The conditions in the US market are going to be really good for the next couple years. So if you want to sell, I would encourage you to sell to the US. The reason I'm telling you this is because we often see some newspaper articles that make you feel too worried about the US market, and don't pay attention to that. The conditions for you to sell into the US are really good right now. Why? First and foremost, we all know about the AI boom. I'm going to show you a slide that shows you how big this boom is. Secondly, there's something going on in the US which is very US specific phenomenon, but there's a lot of money printing going on. And the third reason is I'm very optimistic about the Mag 7 stocks. That includes the Amazon. And as long as those stocks keep going up, remember I showed you the K-shaped economy. The people on the top part of the K, they own stocks, they own their own home. So as long as those people keep getting richer and richer, they're going to be good customers for you. So here's my 3 reasons why I think the US economy is going to be much better than people expect in the next 1 or 2 years. And I'll just tell you a little bit what's behind my thinking on all these. First of all, everybody knows there's a big AI boom going on. Of course you know that. But look at how big it is. I mean, this is just amazing. This is the spending last year, and this year is going to be even more. So this AI boom is like so big that it's boosting Vietnam's economy, it's boosting Korea, it's boosting Taiwan. That's not what we're here to talk about today because I just want to give you a feeling of how big this is in terms of how big the opportunity is to sell into the US. So this is one factor that's boosting the US economy. The other thing to keep in mind is it's a long story, and I'll be around if anyone wants to ask me more details. And by the way, I'll also be around if anyone, I'm not talking too much about the Vietnam economy today, but I can talk about that if anyone's interested. This shows you the 2 lines. One is money printing, and the other is what happens to the stock market when you print money. And this is pushed forward. So basically what this shows you is that the US stock market is going to keep going up for like another 6 months, maybe 12 months. And again, the only reason I'm telling you that, I'm not trying to encourage you to invest in the stock market. What I'm telling you is that your customers on the upper part of the K, they're going to get richer and richer, and they will be able to buy more stuff from you. So that's who you should be targeting. And the last thing that I want to talk about, this is a little bit nerdy. There's a hedge fund which is called Bridgewater. Bridgewater is the biggest hedge fund in the world. There's a guy you may have heard of. His name is Ray Dalio. He's often has some YouTube videos. And Ray Dalio has a very particular way of looking at how the economy and the stock market intersect. So on the last slide, I showed you that when you print money, the stock market goes up. What I'm trying to show you here is this Bridgewater way of looking at the stock market. Basically, it's a very specific way of dissecting the stock market. And long story short, Ray Dalio is also saying that the stock market is going to, in the US, is going to keep going up for like another 6 or 12 months. So you have 2 different approaches that are telling you the same thing. Your customers are on the upper part of the K. They're going to have more money to spend. So please, target baby boomers, target wealthy people in the US, pick a niche, pick which quadrant of the Michael Porter you want to focus on, and just really, really zoom in on that. And don't try to do everything for everybody. Target the right market and zoom in on one strategy for one niche. That's everything I wanted to say. Thank you very much for having me today. I really appreciate it.